She rushed her daughter to the ER and discovered an amazing surprise. Her ex, the baby's father. Sarah's heart raced as she cradled Ava in her arms, the small frame soaked in sweat from the fierce fever engulfing her. Panic consumed her, each second stretching, warping reality as her mind whirled between the chaos of the moment and the sterile familiarity of the hospital she'd passed countless times. "Hold on, sweetie," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady for her daughter's sake, though doubt gnawed at her. What if this was more than just a fever? What if... No, she couldn't let herself spiral. As a pediatric nurse, she knew the signs. She was trained to act, but nothing could prepare her for the storm lurking ahead at the ER. Rushing through the emergency department, the sight of the white walls turned into a kaleidoscope of memories. Her first glimpse of a newborn in the delivery room, the heart-wrenching cries of a patient she had lost. She fought to keep the nostalgia at bay, focusing instead on her fraying nerves and the sinking feeling in her gut. Details warped, blurring along with the urgency stirring within her. She felt raw, exposed, the constant juxtaposition of her role as both a caregiver and a terrified mother squeezing her heart tight. Just when she tried to find her grounding, her breath hitched. Turning a corner, she collided with a figure she never expected to see. Jake. The last time they had spoken was filled with harsh words, bitterness hanging thick in the air. Now he stood in his pristine white coat, the embodiment of responsibility she had long imagined for him. Yet the years apart clashed with his familiar presence. Despite the chaos around them, the world narrowed to just the two of them, entangled in a swirl of unresolved emotions. What was he doing here? Did fate really want to taunt her this way? As he approached, uncertainty flickered across his face, but the heartbeat of their shared past thudded to the surface, bringing with it a flood of anger and longing. Could he really be present now of all times? With Ava in such critical condition, every passing moment felt like a countdown. Sarah's mind raced, tangled between her instinct to protect her daughter and the resurgence of feelings she had thought buried. The very thought of Jake becoming a part of their lives again made her heart ache. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, cautious. "Is she okay?" She's running a high fever, and..." Her throat tightened as she gestured toward the triage desk where nurses were bustling. Inside, every instinct screamed at her to push him away, to fortify the walls she had built for both of them. But a flicker of an old warm connection fought for space amid the turmoil. Why now? Why here? Before she could answer, a doctor's voice rose above the steady hum, drawing everyone's attention. She turned just in time to see Ava's little body begin to shake, her eyes fluttering as if drawn into the void. Heart racing, Sarah felt her breath quicken, every worry rising like a tidal wave. A flood of memories, intertwined with the joys and heartbreak of motherhood, flooded back. The echoes of moments when she had looked to Jake for support flared in her mind. Could she really risk letting him in, only to possibly lose him again? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The intensity in the ER transformed, and the alarm bells echoed in her mind. The once familiar surroundings now felt like a cage closing in. The veil of hope threatened to tear away, replaced by panic lurking in every shadow. As doctors moved quickly around them, Sarah's instincts compelled her to focus on Ava, yet every second she spent near Jake destabilized her resolve. The adrenaline pushed her to confront the past, a past that now tethered itself to their daughter's future. Would they grasp the chance they had lost years ago? Or would this night shatter their already fragile connection? The stakes felt unbearably high, and nothing felt certain as the medical team rushed to save Ava. Time slipped through her fingers as they stood on the precipice of either rekindling love or forever sealing their fates away from one another. Would their hesitations drive them apart once more, altering the lives they had once dreamt of sharing? Sarah's heart raced. Her pediatric instincts screamed for focus, yet the chaos swirling around her threatened to drown her. She watched the medical team spring into action, life-saving measures now the centerpiece of her reality, drowning out the residual echoes of her complex emotions surrounding Jake. She needed to be present for Ava, but the presence of Jake created a psychological tug-of-war within her. The muffled sounds of clinical efficiency filled her ears, dimming the emotional clamor and momentarily stunning her into stillness. This was her professional turf. Her mind became a wellspring of knowledge, a silent mantra echoing her training. Stay calm. Assess the condition. Remember the protocols. But even as she recited these fundamentals, the memory of Jake's concerned expression gnawed at the periphery of her thoughts, intruding upon her focus. A doctor's announcement pulled her back. "We'll need to run some tests immediately." He glanced at Jake for confirmation before turning back to the team. "Let's get her stabilized." Every word sliced through Sarah's chest, a reminder that time was no longer on her side. The stable familiarity of the hospital walls, once a source of solace, now felt insurmountable. All she could think about was Ava's fragile form. Whatever differences there may have been between her and Jake, they would have to wait. She rounded in on the situation, adapting to the demands of the present while reining in her tumultuous feelings. Jake moved beside her, instinctively reaching out as if to comfort. A simple gesture became a spark, igniting old fissures that had never entirely sealed over. Sarah felt a rush of conflicting emotions, unsure whether the warmth or bitterness coursing through her veins defined her more. "Sarah, I know it's been a while," he ventured, but she cut him off with a tight shake of her head, her tone firmer than intended. "This isn't the time." She didn't need him to make things easier. She needed to focus. Yet, as they released Ava into the care of the doctors, a silence fell between them. Heavy, pregnant with unvoiced questions. The past lingered in the air like smoke, choking her. What was she truly feeling? Anger, regret, hope. Each thought twisted in knots, fraying at the seams of her composure. She realized then that it wasn't just fear for Ava that rendered her vulnerable. It was the realization that resolving her feelings for Jake might become an active requirement rather than an optional reflection. Minutes stretched uncomfortably. As the medical team tended to Ava, Jake stepped away to speak with another doctor. Sarah watched him. He was authoritative, even a touch imposing, but there was an essence of tenderness that hadn't faded since their shared life. But how could she trust him again when trust had been the first casualty of their relationship? In that moment of introspection, the weight of every decision crushed down on her. This was more than a personal dilemma. This was the foundation of her daughter's future. She was a mother first, but she was also a woman who had lived, loved, and learned from her choices. The understanding cracked open a window of clarity. She needed to reclaim her narrative. "Stay focused, Sarah," she whispered to herself. She resolved to use this experience to reclaim her strength, both for Ava and herself. Whether Jake became a part of their future remained a question that only time could answer, but she would not allow fear to compromise her or her daughter any longer. As moments turned to hours, and still no updates about her daughter, she found herself staring at the floor, nurturing a plan starting to form in her mind. What did it mean to be a partner again? Could she genuinely allow Jake back into their lives? Confronting those questions took precedence now. "Sarah," Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood before her, a mix of apprehension and resolve etched into his features. "We need to talk." The gravity of the moment hit her as if a door had swung open, allowing a torrent of air to flood her lungs. The tension in the room shifted, signaling an impending confrontation, one that could alter the course of their lives forever. "Okay," she replied, lifting her chin with newfound determination. "But first, we focus on Ava." Yet, in the back of her mind, she knew this wouldn't let her escape the conversation waiting to unfold. The time had come to confront her past, and the possibility of a new beginning. What lay beyond the door of reconciliation might change everything, but would they both be ready to embrace what came next? Sarah's gaze intensified on the double doors of the emergency room, her mind a whirlwind of uncertainty. Years had passed since she'd last stood side by side with Jake, and yet, here they were, thrust together by a crisis that demanded their attention, their strength, and their resolve. With Ava's fate unknown, Sarah dared not retreat into the shadows of her feelings. Instead, she took a steadying breath, transitioning from pure instinct to actionable strategy. Adrenaline coursed through her, sharpening her focus. She silently recited the protocols she had honed through rigorous training, but now they felt different, more personal, more urgent. This was about her daughter, her life, her choices. She needed clarity. "Stay in the moment," she reminded herself. Her professional demeanor reappeared, cultivating a level of detachment necessary to lead her back into the fold. The room pulsed with chaos, yet she found a rhythm in the steady beeping of machines, footsteps echoing against tiled floors, punctuated by the voices of her colleagues. Jake's presence beside her was an unwelcome reminder of their past entanglements, but purposed distraction was her ally now. He might still be the man she once loved, but in this moment, Ava was her priority. She methodically calculated the implications of their potential reconnection as he spoke with the doctor. Questions opened doors in her mind. What exactly did she want from him? Could forgiveness be part of any solution going forward? As they waited for news, Sarah allowed her thoughts to unravel the complex threads binding them. Each memory of laughter shared and disagreements echoed with different weight now. It was a convoluted tapestry of joy and pain. How could such beautiful moments dissolve into the gray of mistrust so easily? Time passed with agonizing slowness, and with it, her resolve strengthened. She whispered affirmations in her heart. This was her moment to reclaim control. There would be no room for hesitation. She needed to be decisive in her actions, both in her profession and as a mother. Maybe this would be the crucible that could either burn away the remnants of their past or forge something anew. As Jake turned back towards her, concern etched deep across his brow. She felt a flicker of connection amidst the tumult of her thoughts. "Ava's strong, Sarah," he offered, searching her gaze. "The doctors are doing everything they can." His words were both a balm and a reminder of her immense anxiety. Yet they also stirred a realization within her. Vulnerability, while daunting, could be a source of empowerment. In choosing to confront her fears and articulate her desires, she could determine the course of their story, not just as co-parents, but potentially as partners once more. "Jake," she began, steady and resolute. "Before we dive into whatever conversation needs to happen, we have to promise to prioritize Ava. No matter what unfolds, she comes first." Jake nodded, his features softening as he absorbed the weight of her declaration. Beneath the current of uncertainty lay the firm foundation of their shared responsibility toward their child. Perhaps this was a crucial first step, an agreement in their silent pact. But remnants of doubt still loomed large. How could she align her heart with the reality of their fractured history? Could trust, once shattered, truly be rebuilt? Each thought sparked conflict within her. "Sarah," he drew closer, intensity marking his voice. "We can't do this alone. I need you to understand. I've changed. I want to prove it to you." Her heart raced again, this time from a volatile mix of longing and trepidation. Was this truth, or just an appeal to emotions born of crisis? Would she dare to believe him after everything? In the very atmosphere of the waiting room, decisions loomed like ominous clouds above her, threatening to release a storm of consequences. Each moment teetered on the brink, infected with resolution and fear in equal measure. A nurse approached, interrupting the rising tension with a wave of news. "She's stable," the nurse announced, bringing both relief and new challenges. "But there may be lasting impacts." Lasting? Sarah's heart sank as she processed the implication. Now thrust into a moment of uncertain permanence, Sarah knew the time had come to face the complexity of her feelings about Jake. As they moved towards the waiting area to learn more, a cascade of emotions surged within her, compelling her to confront more than just the immediate challenges at hand. What this meant for their future, and Ava's future, now rested on a razor-thin edge. The conversation that would unfold was the beginning of a reckoning that could shape their lives. But first, she had to decide what kind of risk was worth taking. With new clarity emerging amidst uncertainties, Sarah took a breath, prepared to navigate the labyrinth of reconciliation with resolve. What would they discover on the path toward healing when weighed against the gravity of their daughter's needs? As the nurse led them down the sterile corridor, the harsh fluorescent lights hummed overhead, amplifying the tension that wrapped around Sarah like a second skin. She felt Jake walking closely by her side, their previous distance now oddly bridged by the shared anxiety over Ava's uncertain future. She caught glimpses of him from the corner of her eye. His furrowed brow, clenched jaw, and pacing steps showcased a fractured man grappling with guilt and hope both at once. Their strides blended into the hurried rhythm of the emergency room, but the closer they got to the waiting area for family members, the more Sarah felt the weight of her own feelings claw back into focus. This delicate moment would serve as a prelude to a larger discussion about trust and healing, a weighing of risks against the potential for renewal. "Jake, I need you to be honest," she said suddenly, halting in the midst of chaos surrounding them. "Why now? Why not before?" He hesitated, his eyes narrowing slightly as he contemplated her question. "I guess I always thought there'd be time. Time to fix myself, to fix things between us. And then, life happened. I took it for granted." Her pulse quickened. This was the gravity she sought. "You can't say that. Not when we both know I wasn't without fault either. But this isn't about us, not right now. It's about Ava." A fleeting shadow crossed his face, an acknowledgement of their shared culpability in their failed attempts to co-parent across the divide of their past. "I want you to know, I haven't stopped caring. I've worked on myself, for Ava and me both." Sarah nodded, wanting to believe in his willingness to change. Beneath her skepticism lay a flicker of hope, a desire for cooperation fueled by necessity. Over the years, she had learned to rely on herself, forging a life and career from the ashes of their past mistakes. But facing this new crossroad, could she extend that same fortitude to Jake? As if sensing her internal struggle, Jake stepped closer. "Whatever I did before doesn't define me today. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. Just give me a chance to show you I can be a better father, a better partner." His words hung in the air between them, filled with a weight that both comforted and terrified her. Wouldn't a part of her once have reveled in such an offer? But that part was buried beneath layers of betrayal and disappointment. Still, the thought of Ava deserving both parents fighting for her brought clarity to her conflicted heart. She could feel anxiety and determination warring within her, a duality she would need to navigate with deftness moving forward. "Let's tackle this one step at a time," Sarah finally replied, the resolve settling in her voice. "We'll keep our focus on Ava. Only for her. We'll talk more about us later." Just then, a doctor emerged from the depths of the emergency area, wearing an aura of controlled urgency. His gaze moved swiftly from Sarah to Jake, then back again. "Ava's stable," he said, as though offering a lifeline amid chaotic seas. "But we need to discuss her care plan going forward." The rush of relief surged through Sarah, igniting a sense of purpose. She steeled herself for the conversation to follow, but with each step closer to the doctor, She couldn't ignore the undercurrent of tension still swirling between her and Jake. Their agreement to prioritize Ava held no guarantees about their emotional entanglements. As details unfolded about the next steps in treating Ava, the clinical environment of the hospital began to mirror the palpable shifts in their relationship. Each piece of information drawn from the doctor felt like a field they had to tread carefully together, building neither walls nor bridges while navigating the reality of their past and the hope of their future. It was only when the doctor finished laying out the treatment options that Sarah felt a stirring in her gut, a sense of an impending storm mixed with a flicker of anticipation. As they moved through the steps toward Ava's recovery, she recognized a dawning realization. This crisis had thrust her into the crucible where the survival of their relationship would be forged or shattered anew. With something crystallizing inside her, Sarah turned to Jake. If we're going to do this right, we both need to confront our past. We have to make sure Ava doesn't have to carry any of that weight forward. He nodded, understanding her words to be a challenge and a promise wrapped in one. And as they faced the uncertain path ahead, the thought lingered in Sarah's mind. Could they not only heal their daughter, but also reshape their own lives in a way that truly protected Ava's future? As that question settled, a new complexity entered. How willing could she be to allow vulnerability, not just in allowing Jake back into their lives, but also within herself? With the stakes raised, they would have to navigate through uncharted waters, testing the mettle of their intentions as they learned to walk on a fine line between hope and trepidation. The next moments would hold the key to unlocking a path neither could foresee. The hours melted away in the stark brightness of the waiting room, where the harshness of reality kept Sarah and Jake trapped in a cycle of anticipation and anxiety. Doctors and nurses moved with purpose, a blur against the stillness that now enveloped them. Questions lodged in Sarah's throat, battling with the instinct to remain strong for Ava. Looking over at Jake, she noted the stoic mask he wore, yet it cracked just enough for her to sense the tremors of vulnerability beneath. Do you ever wonder if our best efforts will even be enough? Jake broke the silence after what felt like an eternity, stealing glances toward the double doors as if they held the answers. Sarah studied him, this man who had once known her intimately, but now felt like a stranger. I've learned that all we can do is our best. Ava deserves that from us. We have to provide her with a united front. Jake shifted in his seat, his body language betraying an internal conflict. What if best isn't good enough? What if we mess up again? His fear was palpable, resonating somewhere deep within her. Sarah let out a slow breath, allowing a moment of reflection. We can't keep worrying about past failures. If we keep looking back, we'll stumble again. This time, we need to be proactive. She looked deep into his eyes, acknowledging the undeniable connection that still flickered between them. It was complicated, laden with remnants of hurt and longing for resolution, but also imbued with the shared goal of seeing Ava thrive. Let's focus on what we can change moving forward, she continued, deliberating on what steps they might take while navigating their own delicate landscape. We need to get involved with her care regimen, mitigate any future risks, and work together as parents. Together, Jake echoed as if weighing the word. That's going to be tough. Yes, it will, Sarah asserted, the unfamiliar yearning for collaboration igniting a flame of determination in her. But we owe it to her. The finality of that statement instilled a sense of urgency within Sarah. This parental partnership was a fragile truce, and she knew that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. Yet surrendering to defeat felt more daunting than facing their past. Just then, the doctor reappeared, bringing with him a swirl of emotions. Sarah's heart raced at the thought of news, good or bad. We need to discuss Ava's treatment plan and what support she will need during recovery. I understand this is a difficult time for both of you. They were both leaning in, eager to absorb every word. As he spoke, Sarah began to feel empowered. For too long she had been reactive, letting life dictate her path. But now, armed with knowledge, She could carve out a space for her voice, not just for herself, but for Ava, and even, tentatively, for Jake. When the conversation shifted toward emotional support for their daughter, how they'd have to navigate the complexities of her treatment journey as co-parents, Sarah felt a shift inside her. She saw Jake's eyes soften as he absorbed the potential implications. This was bigger than them. This was about Ava's well-being, a chance to forge a new narrative. "I want to be by her side through this," Jake finally said, quietly firm. "If that means stepping up entirely, I'm ready for that." Sarah nodded, a mix of gratitude and surprise flooding through her. But another layer of apprehension crept in. Could she trust him to remain committed? She recognized that while they were heading toward potential healing, they also stood on a precipice. In that moment, Sarah recalled her own childhood and how distorted familial bonds could yield long-lasting scars. She could not let that happen to Ava. It had to be different this time around. "Then we'll do it together," she affirmed, cautiously extending a bridge toward a fragile new beginning. "But I need to see real change, Jake." Something shifted between them, an understanding as deep as the underlying emotional turmoil swirling within both of them. It wasn't going to be easy. It would require constant surveillance over their actions, words, and intentions. As they delved deeper into their commitments as parents rather than partners, Sarah felt the nagging worry stoke anew the fires of uncertainty. Each smiley-faced brochure the doctor handed out felt like a lighthouse guiding her through turbulent waters. But what if they strayed off course again? The looming question remained. Could vulnerability cultivate the trust between them necessary to foster a healthy environment for Ava? Each discussion revealed more layers of complexity, forcing Sarah to grapple with the fear of allowing Jake back into her life, pairing that fear against an emerging flicker of hope for a redefined family. With Ava's recovery on the line and their future uncertain, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their next move could either be a leap toward healing or a step back into chaos. As they left the hospital for the first time, as concerned parents united over a shared goal, she questioned whether this fragile alliance could withstand the turbulent undercurrents of their past. There, in the shadow of the hospital, she felt a deeper truth settling. Change was not merely possible, it was essential. But just how much of herself was she willing to risk revealing? The moment for that decision crept closer with every heartbeat. The drive home from the hospital was punctuated by silence, the kind that enveloped two souls in shared uncertainty yet separate fears. Sarah clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white in contrast to her dark thoughts swirling in a confusion of what-ifs and how-comes. Each stoplight seemed to echo her internal conflict, forcing her to confront the emotions she had managed to compartmentalize for the sake of facing life's immediate demands. "Do you think they have what it takes to help her?" Jake's voice finally broke through the haze, a thread of unease in his tone. It surprised her that he felt the need to seek validation from her, when she herself was still grappling with her doubts. "I think they're doing their best," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But we need to be sure we're doing our part too." As they approached their neighborhood, every block felt like an emotional rehearsal of their commitment to Ava. She dared to glance over at Jake, who appeared lost in thought. What did he see when he looked at her? A partner willing to reconcile? Or just remnants of their shattered past? This discomfort stirred something within her, a fierce need to not only reaffirm her readiness to trust, but also to assert her independence in navigating their fragile co-parenting arrangement. After a hesitant moment, Sarah posed a question that had lingered in her mind since their talk at the hospital. "What do you envision our roles being, Jake? As co-parents, I mean." "Honestly?" He paused, as if weighing the honesty he wanted to convey. "I don't want to just be in the same room as you when it comes to Ava. I want to know that I can count on us. Together." His admission sent a ripple of warmth through her, though she fought against the instinct to allow her heart to leap too far ahead. "Together," she echoed slowly, testing the word on her tongue. "That means sharing responsibilities not just when it's easy, but also when it's messy. Jake nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. Yes. I want to put effort into this, Sarah. It's just scary to start fresh when there's so much history between us. It was refreshing to hear a glimmer of vulnerability from him, a stark contrast to the wall he had built around his emotions in the past. Yet, within that same breath, she felt a flicker of doubt. Was Jake truly ready to confront the past? With a determined urge, she pressed on. Emotional baggage. Look, we need to confront it, not shove it under the rug. What are you afraid of? Of failing. Again, he admitted, his honesty drawing them closer, pushing her to confront her own fears. It was a double-edged sword, the risk of opening old wounds, but also the only path toward real healing. Maybe we can start with smaller commitments, she proposed, a plan of action slowly forming in her mind. Let's set specific times to check in with each other about Ava. Establish ground rules. Make sure we're consistently putting her first. That sounds solid, he agreed with a cautious nod, though she could see the flicker of hesitation still in his eyes. But will that really be enough? It's a beginning, Sarah said, determination softening her tone, yet retaining its firmness. We may stumble, but as long as we're communicating, we can recalibrate together. There was empowerment in that realization, lifting the weight on her shoulders even briefly. For the first time, she caught a glimpse of their potential. They were in a state of rediscovery, not just as parents, but as individuals. They were both grappling with raw emotions and hidden strengths yet to be revealed. As they pulled into the driveway, she noticed the small, lush maple tree that had just begun to bloom. It reminded her of renewal, a natural cycle of growth. Could she encourage their own growth into something healthier and more fulfilling? Exiting the vehicle, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the cool spring air fill her lungs. Clarity washed over her. They were still facing a myriad of uncertainties, but alongside that uncertainty was the promise of a new chapter for Ava and themselves. But before she could step forward into this new dynamic, she felt a pulse of anxiety surface. Could she truly navigate this relationship without falling prey to old patterns of distrust? Hey, Jake interrupted her thoughts as if sensing her hesitation. About what you said. I want to rebuild things, but do we need to keep our past so close to the surface? Could we let some things go? The question hung heavily, begging her to reflect deeply. Could she afford to let go of her guard while remaining cautious? As shadows danced across the driveway, the tension between them hung palpable. Fragile, yet electrifying. Anything could happen next. Would this be the moment she'd finally shed her defenses, or would it push them both further away? The possibility of a fresh beginning flared like a beacon against the darkness of their past, yet doubt lingered close behind, ready to snuff it out. The answer was eluding her, and the clock was ticking. Would she allow herself this chance? The gentle rustle of leaves in the spring breeze did little to soothe Sarah's racing mind as she stepped away from the car. Jake's words echoed like relentless waves, crashing against the shoreline of her resolve. Let some things go? The thought twisted her insides. It was both tantalizing and terrifying. Was it true that the past had to be excavated before it could be laid to rest? Or was Jake simply seeking an easy way out, avoiding the hard conversations they both desperately needed? As she walked toward the front door, determination pulsated in her chest. She could spend the next few days ruminating on this moment, parsing through its implications. But what would that achieve? She needed to take action, to ground herself in the present, to see beyond the protective barriers she had built around her heart. Inside, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the clutter of family photographs that adorned the fridge. Snapshots of joyous times with Ava, reminders of laughter and simpler days. Each image held a lesson in the intertwining threads of memory, but what they also implied was a form of accountability. She was not just rebuilding with Jake, she was also redefining herself. Among the blemishes of their past, there lay the opportunity for renewal. "Mom!" Ava's voice rang out, poking through her reverie. The sound of her daughter's joyful exuberance filled the house, lifting Sarah's spirits momentarily. When she turned around, she saw Ava bounding toward her, eyes sparkling with innocence and love. That very love was the anchor she needed to pull herself forward, beyond fear and uncertainty. "Hey, sweet girl! How are you feeling today?" Sarah knelt to embrace her, inhaling the familiar smell of her daughter's favorite strawberry shampoo, which somehow made everything feel a little more manageable. "I feel better today," Ava exclaimed, her enthusiasm in stark contrast to the tumult that brewed in Sarah's mind. "Can we draw? I want to make a picture for Dad." The word Dad hit her like a slap, jolting her back to the present moment and demanding her full attention. Would drawing that picture mean their past was too present for her comfort? There was a nagging voice within, reminding her that despite all their conflicts, Jake remained Ava's father. And Ava needed that connection. "Absolutely!" Sarah smiled, though a small part of her hesitated. The fear of being vulnerable tugged at her, a frail line tethered to the lessons learned in heartbreak. Yet as she watched Ava run to gather her colored pencils, something shifted inside Sarah. Maybe drawing would be a simultaneous act of healing for both of them. It could open the door for her to discuss with Ava how their family could look moving forward. As they settled at the kitchen table, Sarah turned to Ava, her heart softening. "You know, drawing a picture for Daddy is a really nice idea. It shows him how much you care." Ava beamed, her little face lighting up the room. "Do you think he'll hang it on his wall?" "I think he would love that," Sarah said, though the uncertainty of that confirmed reality hung over her like a low cloud. As they began to create, doodling scenes of sunshine and colorful flowers, Sarah felt the walls she had built begin to crack. This could serve a greater narrative, one rooted in collaboration and understanding instead of conflict and resentment. In letting Ava express her love for Jake, Sarah could potentially order her own feelings too. But there was still a storm brewing within. What if Jake couldn't handle this newfound openness? What if he misread it, believing they were on a trajectory towards reconciliation? "Mom, what color should I use for the sun?" Ava asked, breaking her train of thought. In that moment, Sarah was seized by a wave of realization. It was not merely about what they could offer Jake, but what they could forge together, this loving bond, unencumbered by the cramped space of past grievances. The possibility of creating something new, infused with the energy of positive intentions, was in their hands. But just then, her phone buzzed against the table, piercing the tranquil atmosphere. A message lit up the screen, a notification from Jake. The mere sight of his name sent a shiver of nervous energy through her. Questions churned in her mind like a tempest. What did he want to say this time? Was it about their conversation earlier, or something deeper hidden beneath the surface? A tremor of anticipation gripped her as she picked up the device, her thumb hovering over the message. The possibilities, each one fraught with risk, converged into a single moment where she had to decide whether to deal with her fears directly or keep them festering just out of sight. Whatever it read could either be another ripple in their tumultuous waters, or an invitation to navigate towards calmer seas. With Ava waiting eagerly beside her, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down. Would she embrace this conversation, or retreat into the safety of uncertainty? The clock was ticking. The moment of truth was upon her. Would Sarah take the plunge? Sarah's finger trembled as she finally pressed the screen, transforming the potential consequences of Jake's message from a mere premonition to a vibrant reality. The words blinked into focus. "Can we talk? I think we need to discuss some things." A flood of emotions surged within her. The urgency in his request struck a chord deep inside. It was time to confront the labyrinth of their history, a maze she had been skirting for too long. She felt the tension rise in her chest. Tears prickled at the edges of her vision. Yes, they needed to talk. But would they turn back to the same painful cycles that had left them both gasping for air? Ava's cheerful chatter faded to a distant hum as Sarah wrestled with conflicting thoughts. What if this was another dead end? Mom, what do you think? Ava's innocent question broke through her turmoil, pulling her back from the brink. What if Dad doesn't like the picture? Sarah's gaze dropped to the colorful rendering of sprawling flowers under a sun made of scribbles, each stroke a testament to her daughter's perception of love and joy. Ava's words crystallized the choice before her. Honey, sometimes the things we create come from the heart. They don't always need to be perfect. Sarah took a steadying breath, reminded that, in this moment, Ava blinked with the clarity she desperately sought. While she feared Jake's reaction, the truth remained. This was not solely about her anymore. It was also about Ava, about fostering the connection they both desired with him. The very act of drawing this tribute of innocence encapsulated a tone of openness that Sarah was beginning to realize she also craved. "Do you want help with the picture?" she asked, her heart lightening just a bit as she imagined reflecting on this moment with Jake, an opportunity bent towards understanding rather than confrontation. "Can you draw a rainbow?" Ava's eyes sparkled. "Of course," Sarah said, picking up a bright cyan pencil. As she sketched, she allowed her thoughts to spill out. Each stroke of the pencil was not just decoration, but a reminder. You know, people make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are what help us grow. Like when I spilled my juice on the carpet. Ava giggled, recalling the incident that had turned their living room into a colorful mess. Exactly. Suddenly the burdens from before, the anger, the hurt, felt lighter. Sarah sensed a shift, a space forging between the past and the present, where vulnerability would be vital. She did not have to shoulder the past solely. They could navigate this together, however slowly. A warmth flowed through her, filling her with a semblance of hope. But the glimmer was soon overshadowed by apprehension. The meeting with Jake loomed like an impending storm. As much as she wished to dismantle the barriers that had long defined their relationship, each step forward also bore the risk of falling back. After the drawing was complete, they set the picture aside, and Sarah turned toward her phone again. Jake's message still lay there, waiting. A tumult of emotions coursed through her. Perhaps a part of her was afraid that confronting Jake would unearth a truth she wasn't ready to face, one that held the potential to shatter her carefully crafted equilibrium. Her instincts pulled her in opposing directions. Part of her yearned for reconciliation, to rebuild that foundation she had once thought unshakable. The other part, however, recoiled at the thought of reopening old wounds. Was this the moment to forge a new path, or merely the prelude to a familiar tragedy? "Mom, what if he really wants to be our friend again?" Ava's voice was soft, innocent, filled with expectation. "Sometimes it takes time to see clearly," Sarah said, her gut tightening. "But what I've learned is that we can't be afraid to ask tough questions." Finally, she knew she needed to make a decision. She needed to step back from the swirling chaos in her own mind and take that step forward for Ava's sake as well as her own. Glancing at her daughter, she felt a swell of both fear and determination. She had to send a response. Taking a deep breath, Sarah tapped out a reply. "Sure. When and where?" As she hit send, the knot inside her twisted tighter. Would this response invite the understanding she desired, or would it spiral them into a confrontation laden with everything they had worked to move past? The phone buzzed immediately, Jake's response lighting up her screen. "I can come by tonight. Just us." A palpable silence enveloped the kitchen, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Sarah felt apprehensive, yet a spark of courage ignited within her. This moment was not only for Jake or for Ava, but also one for herself, an invitation to rebirth. A decision loomed over her. Could she step beyond fear and into the unknown of possibilities? Would she find the voice she had been stifling, ready to embrace whatever awaited? The phone laid silent, The clock ticked, and beneath it all, Sarah felt the rhythmic pulse of something new and terrifying, waiting to be confronted. Tonight would be the crossroads. Would she walk forward or turn back? As the hours ticked closer to her meeting with Jake, Sarah found herself pacing the kitchen, the drawn picture still propped against the wall as a reminder of innocence and hope. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if she was walking in place, going nowhere yet overwhelmed by the gravity of the night ahead. Her mind ran wild, tossing thoughts like debris caught in a storm. What would he say? Would they be able to discuss their past without it fracturing the fragile truce that had formed since their separation? She glanced at the window where the shadows lengthened, the fading light a mirror to her shifting mood. Hopeful, anxious, regretful. She knew she had to prepare herself, to armor her heart against what might come. What happened in that living room tonight could alter the structure of her reality. It could be a path to understanding, or an invitation to dive again into the ache of unresolved wounds. A sharp ping from her phone pulled her from her reverie. The message was from Jake. "I'll be there at 7. Just 5 hours until the doorbell might herald a discussion long overdue. She couldn't ignore the underlying current of excitement mixed with fear, both emotions vying for dominance as she mused over the possibilities of their conversation. Taking a moment to breathe, Sarah turned to the kitchen counter, preparing to make dinner. Chopping vegetables was mindless work, allowing her a canvas to process the chaos of her thoughts. With each slice, she recalled the moments they had shared and the pain of their parting. The sound of the knife against the board was almost therapeutic, a steady rhythm amidst her turmoil. "How are you holding up, Mom?" Ava's voice floated through the doorway, pulling her from her internal storm. The sincerity in her daughter's eyes made Sarah pause. "I'm just preparing dinner, sweetie. Can you help me wash these?" "Sure." Ava bounded over, her excitement radiating through the tension-laden air. As they worked side by side, Sarah was reminded of the importance of this moment, not just for herself but for Ava as well. Their lives had been intertwined in ways deeper than she'd realized, and she needed to lead by example. While they washed the vegetables, Sarah found herself reflecting on her fears. Was she prepared to be vulnerable? Would she find a way to articulate her feelings without succumbing to resentment? Putting that energy into preparing for their meeting felt like equipping herself with the right tools to navigate uncharted waters. "Mom, I made a wish today," Ava piped up suddenly, her hands busy with water splashing around. "What was it, darling?" Sarah asked, momentarily distracted by the bright spark in her daughter's eyes. "I wished for everyone to be happy," she replied, matter-of-factly, as though the world should naturally align itself to that simple wish. Sarah's heart ached at the weight of that honesty. Her little girl carried the burden of childhood optimism and innocence, a reminder that love, as uncertain and challenging as it might be, was the beating heart of their family unit. "That's a beautiful wish, Ava." Dinner was completed with more ease than she expected, and soon enough, the clock moved closer to 7 p.m. As they sat down to eat, Ava chatted about her day at school, her voice a buoy through Sarah's mounting anxiety. Then the doorbell rang sharply, echoing through the kitchen. With a racing pulse, Sarah stood up, wiping her hands on the dish towel. She hesitated at the entrance to the living room, heart pounding in a chaotic rhythm. This was it, face to face with the past, emerging from the shadows into the light of possibility, carrying the weight of what was and what could be. She opened the door and faced Jake, who stood there, uncertainty etched across his features. Instead of saying a word, they simply regarded each other, a moment suspended in time, where vulnerability and strength danced side by side. A tentative smile graced his lips, but Sarah felt an overwhelming surge of emotions trap her in place, a moment seemingly both filled with promise and the echo of former heartaches. "Hey," he murmured, and in that one syllable, she felt the world shift beneath her feet. Her heart thundered in her chest. Would this be the moment they both had been searching for? Or would it plunge them deeper into a cycle they promised to break? The stage was set, and with every inhale, Sarah prepared to confront the questions she'd long avoided. Would the truth be liberating or confining? "Can we talk?" she managed, her voice steadying despite the rising tide of feelings coursing through her. As they stepped inside, she realized that tonight wasn't just about Jake or their history. It was about recognizing the person she had become through every choice, every mistake, every moment leading up to this. And perhaps, just perhaps, this could be the stepping stone toward something radically new. As Sarah closed the door behind Jake, the sound reverberated through the small space, marking the beginning of a new chapter. The air was thick with unvoiced sentiments, yet she felt an unfamiliar resolve pulsing through her. "Let's sit," she suggested, gesturing toward the living room. As they settled on the couch, Sarah glanced at the colorful drawing Ava had made earlier that day, propped proudly against the wall. Its vibrant hues reminded her of the love she wanted to cultivate, not only for her daughter, but with Jake as well. After a moment of silence, she turned to him with determination. "We need to talk about how we move forward from here." Jake nodded, his expression shifting from apprehension to agreement. "I couldn't agree more. I realize we've both been holding on to so much fear and uncertainty. But Ava deserves better from us." As they exchanged these words, Sarah felt the weight of years spent in anger and hurt begin to lift. This was a turning point, a chance to reclaim their narrative as co-parents, and perhaps, if time allowed, something deeper. "Before we get into it," she interjected, "I need you to understand something. If we're going to make this work, we have to put Ava first. Always." "Of course." Jake's voice was firm yet gentle, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of calm settle over her. "I know we failed before," she continued, her heart racing as she embraced the vulnerability sweeping through her. "But I can't let fear dictate how I approach our future. This, what we're doing right now, is the first important step." "I agree," Jake said, leaning forward. "And I want to show you that I've changed. It took me stepping away from our past to realize how truly invested I need to be, not just in becoming a better father, but a better man." Sarah's breath caught as she looked into his eyes. There was sincerity present that felt both familiar and foreign, urging her to believe in this moment. "What does that look like to you?" "It means being there for Ava," he replied, his voice steadying. "It means showing up no matter how hard it gets. I want to support you in every way, but also to create space for her and you. Let's make joint decisions about her life and primarily prioritize her emotional well-being." Tension melted away as they began to outline concrete ways to co-parent. The initial conversations focused on practicalities, schedules, visitation, healthcare plans, all essential pieces that would assist in rebuilding the framework of their family on new foundations. Each agreement reaffirmed the both of them were willing to evolve. Their openness painted a brighter picture, sculpting the future with intention. The discussion flowed naturally as they progressed into deeper waters. They ventured into the emotional territory they had previously avoided so carefully, acknowledging pain, reflecting on what went wrong, and expressing what they truly desired moving forward. "I regret how things ended between us," Jake admitted, his eyes searching Sarah's. "I regret not being able to acknowledge my shortcomings. For that, I'm truly sorry." "I regret it too," Sarah voiced, feeling the shared grief for their past radiate between them. But maintaining that anger served no purpose other than to hold us back. "I want us to heal. Not just for us, but for Ava." The more they shared, the clearer it became. Real trust would require transparency. There would be challenges, moments of discomfort as they revisited raw emotions. But honesty lay at the crux of their renewal. As the evening wound down, a profound realization emerged. They were not merely rehashing old wounds. They were embracing the potential for something new and better. When the conversation turned toward Ava, a sense of lightness filled the room. We need to be intentional about showing her how much we love her, Jake suggested. Beyond the words, through consistent actions, we both need to learn how to prioritize her happiness together. Yes, and we can create situations that foster that connection between us. Family traditions, activities, things that ensure she feels our support, Sarah agreed, a smile breaking across her face as she envisioned days to come, filled with laughter and togetherness. With every word they exchanged, they built upon a trust that had been long overlooked. Brick by brick, the walls of fear began to crumble. Between confessions and affirmations, moments that had once felt burdened by hurt transformed into opportunities for healing. As midnight approached, exhaustion settled upon them. Yet Sarah felt a welcomed sense of completeness, a commitment to growth rather than retreating into the shadows of failure. We both have a long way to go, she acknowledged, but tonight I feel like we've laid the groundwork to be better versions of ourselves, not just for Ava, but for each other. Agreed. Jake's acknowledgement was more than an agreement. It was a promise. As they both stood by the door, places marked by years of uncertainty behind them, Sarah realized that their journey towards co-parenting could also be the catalyst for their personal evolution. This significant transformation resonated. It wasn't the end, but rather the beginning of a journey they would face together, steadfastly forging ahead with deliberate intentions. They parted that night with a shared sense of accomplishment. The night had concluded, yet the true work lay just ahead of them. The ongoing journey back towards each other, towards trust, and ultimately working to build a serene, rich future for Ava, their greatest gift. And in that moment, she felt a free air of confidence wash over her. She had conquered the fear of vulnerability, challenged herself to stand firm in her truth, and taken the monumental step to redefine her family. As the door closed behind Jake, revelations washed over her. She was on the precipice of profound change, with countless opportunities to courageously embrace this newfound resolve. This was the beginning of her evolution, transforming her past into power and weaving a narrative that would blossom beautifully from the ashes of hurt into the soil of hope. Now was the time to stand by the very ideals she had fought for. Honesty, commitment, and the essence of love that would allow her to achieve personal fulfillment. A life that mattered, a legacy she could be proud of, not just for herself, but for Ava and Jake, too. Without hesitation, Sarah turned to the drawing that Ava had made earlier. There, the simple strokes of color glittered like stars on a canvas of opportunity, reminding her that anything is possible. With that, she felt an unwavering commitment to nurture not only her daughter, but the relationships and connections woven within her heart. This journey required support and dedication from all sides, and the significance of these connections would shape a future rich with promise, a united front for all they aimed for together. Now, let this transformative journey inspire you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show support for this journey of overcoming adversity. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Sharing your thoughts is what helps us grow together. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. A masterpiece of resilience awaits. Don't wait even one more second. Your engagement fuels the fire of these inspiring narratives.